2,000 years ago, bread was called the staff of life. Today, bread is called the thing your doctor tells you to stop eating. Same word, same food, completely different thing. And nobody's asking the obvious question, what changed? Because something changed. Something big. Bread didn't just go from being the foundation of human health for thousands of years to suddenly being the enemy. Somebody did something to it. Several somebodies, actually, over several decades. And by the time they were done, the bread on your kitchen counter had almost nothing in common with the bread that fed entire civilizations. And I know what some of you are thinking right now. It's just bread. How different can it really be? Very different. And by the end of this, you're going to look at that loaf in your pantry completely differently. This is that story. Let's start where bread started. Not in a factory, not on a shelf, in a field. The wheat that grew in ancient Israel. The wheat that Jesus broke at the Last Supper. The wheat that Ruth gleaned in the fields of Boaz. The wheat that Joseph stored in the granaries of Egypt was not the wheat you know. It was called emmer, sometimes einkorn, sometimes spelt. These were ancient grains, wild, tall, stubborn plants that grew slowly, produced modest yields, and had been essentially unchanged for thousands of years. The stalks stood 5 or 6 feet tall, swaying in the wind across the hills of Galilee and the plains of Judea. If you stood in a field of einkorn, the grain would reach your chest. It looked nothing like the short, compact, industrial wheat you see today in massive monoculture farms. And the grain they produced was fundamentally different from modern wheat. It had fewer chromosomes, 14 in einkorn, 28 in emmer, compared to 42 in modern bread wheat. A simpler gluten structure, more protein, more fiber, more minerals, more of everything your body actually needs, and less of everything that causes problems. Think about that for a second. The wheat itself, the raw material, was a completely different plant. Before anyone even touched it, before anyone ground it or baked it, the starting ingredient was already healthier. But here's the thing that really matters, and this is where the whole story turns. Nobody just ground that grain and ate it. They fermented it. Every single loaf of bread in the ancient world was sourdough. Not because they were health conscious, not because they read a blog about gut health, not because some influencer told them to, because they had no other option. Commercial yeast didn't exist. Baker's yeast, the little packet you buy at the grocery store, wasn't isolated and mass-produced until the 19th century. Before that, for thousands of years, every civilization on Earth that made bread did it the same way. You mixed flour and water. You left it out. Wild yeast from the air, from the environment, from the flour itself, from the baker's hands, landed on the dough and began to ferment it. Slowly, over hours, sometimes over days. The Egyptians were doing this as early as 2000 BC. By the time of Jesus, sourdough bread had been the standard for over 2,000 years. Every household kept a piece of fermented dough from the previous batch, a starter, and mixed it into the new dough. That starter was alive. It was a living colony of wild yeast and lactic acid bacteria working together, eating the sugars in the flour, producing gas to make the bread rise, and producing acids that gave the bread its slightly sour taste. And this is something I want you to really picture. Every morning, in every household across ancient Israel, a woman, usually the mother, the eldest daughter, or a servant, would reach into a clay jar and pull out a piece of dough from yesterday. That piece of dough was alive. It had been fermenting overnight, bubbling quietly in the cool of the house. She would mix it into the new flour and water, knead it, and let it sit for hours while she went about her day. By the time the bread went into the oven, a clay taboon oven heated with dried dung or brushwood, that dough had been fermenting for 12, sometimes 18 hours. And here's what nobody understood at the time, but science has confirmed now. That long, slow fermentation process was doing something extraordinary to the bread. It was making it medicine. It was making it medicine. And I don't mean that in a poetic way. I mean, the bread was literally protecting them. See, here's the thing about grain that nobody talks about. Grain doesn't want to be eaten. I know that sounds weird, but think about it. A grain is a seed. Its whole purpose is to fall into the ground and become a new plant. So it has built-in defenses, natural chemicals that lock away the nutrients inside. If you just grind grain and eat it, your body gets almost nothing. The iron, the zinc, the calcium, it's all there, but it passes right through you. Your body can't touch it. But fermentation cracks those locks open. Those 12, 18 hours of the dough just sitting there, quietly bubbling in a clay jar in the corner of the house. That process was unlocking everything. By the time Martha slid that bread into the oven, the nutrients were free, available, ready. She didn't know that. Nobody did. They just knew the bread worked. They knew their kids grew strong. They knew a man could eat bread at dawn and work the fields until the sun was directly overhead without collapsing. The bread was doing something invisible, something nobody would understand for another 2,000 years. And it wasn't just the nutrients. You know how today, millions of people say they can't eat bread. The bloating, the stomach pain, the heaviness. I'm gluten intolerant, people say. And they are. But here's the question nobody's asking. What if it's not the gluten? What if it's what we stop doing to the gluten? Because that same slow fermentation, the one that unlocked the nutrients, was also breaking down the gluten. Not all of it. The bread still held together, still rose, still had that beautiful structure. But the gluten was softer, gentler, pre-digested, almost, before it ever reached your stomach. Your body didn't have to fight it. The fermentation had already done the hard work. And here's what's wild. There are people today, right now, who haven't eaten bread in years because it destroys their stomach, and they try real sourdough, real long-fermented, old-world sourdough, and nothing happens. No bloating, no pain, no crash, because the bread isn't the problem. What we did to the bread is the problem. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll get there. Grain, water, salt, and time. That was bread. That was the staff of life. That was what Jesus broke with his hands and gave to his disciples and said, "This is my body." But since the biblical bread of the past is nothing like what we know today, well, there were 4 drastic changes in history regarding this. First, they changed the wheat that grew in the fields of ancient Israel, the wheat Ruth gleaned, the wheat Joseph stored in Egypt. The wheat that Jesus walked past on the roads of Galilee was a plant called emmer, sometimes einkorn, sometimes spelt. These were old grains, wild grains. They'd been growing essentially unchanged for thousands of years. Tall, stubborn plants that swayed in the wind, 5 or 6 feet high, producing modest amounts of grain. And the grain they produced was gentle, simple, a gluten structure that human stomachs had adapted to over millennia. But in the 1950s and 60s, scientists decided to fix wheat. The world population was exploding. People were starving. The old wheat didn't produce enough, so they bred new varieties. Shorter, sturdier, with dramatically higher yields. A man named Norman Borlaug led the effort. He won the Nobel Peace Prize. He's credited with saving 1 billion lives. And I want to be honest about that. The hunger was real. The crisis was real. The intention was good. But the new wheat was a different plant. Its gluten was stronger, tougher, more aggressive, great for making fluffy factory bread, terrible for human digestion. It had a protein structure that human bodies had literally never encountered in the entire history of our species. And nobody asked whether that mattered. Because nobody was thinking about stomachs. They were thinking about harvests. Stage 2, they gutted the flour. In the ancient world, grain was ground between 2 stones. Slowly, roughly, everything stayed in. The fiber, the vitamins, the minerals, the oils. The flour was brown, coarse, and packed with nutrition. Jesus talked about this. Matthew 24:41. 2 women will be grinding with a hand mill. One will be taken and the other left. Grinding grain was so universal, so daily that he used it as an image everyone would instantly understand. It was like saying two people scrolling their phones today. Everyone did it, every single day. Then came steel roller mills in the late 1800s, and these machines could do something stone mills never could. They could separate the grain into parts. They stripped away the fiber, stripped away the nutrients. What was left was pure white starch, beautiful, light, and nutritionally empty. And here's the part that should make your blood boil. Because they knew it was empty, they had to add synthetic vitamins back in. That's what enriched flour means on the label. They stole the real nutrition, then sprinkled in a cheap imitation of some of it. Not all of it, just enough to print on the package, and called it enriched. That's like someone burning down your house and handing you a tent and saying, "There, you're enriched." And you want to hear something that history keeps trying to teach us, and we keep refusing to learn? In the ancient world, white bread existed, but only the rich could afford it. The poor ate the dark, heavy, whole grain bread. And when archaeologists dig up remains from that era, guess what they find? The rich, the ones eating the fancy white bread, had worse teeth, weaker bones, and more disease than the laborers eating the inferior brown bread. The expensive bread was the bad bread. 2,000 years ago, and we turned around and made it the standard for the entire world. Stage 3. They killed the fermentation. This is the one that breaks my heart, because this is where they killed the soul of bread. Commercial yeast, fast-acting, factory-produced, reliable, replaced sourdough starters in most bakeries by the mid-20th century. And the reason was simple, the oldest reason in the world: money. A sourdough loaf takes 12 to 24 hours. A loaf with commercial yeast takes 1 to 2 hours, sometimes less. In a factory producing 10,000 loaves a day, that difference is everything. So they killed the wait, they killed the slow rise, they killed the fermentation. And when they killed the fermentation, they killed everything. The nutrients stayed locked, the gluten stayed tough, the sugars stayed fast. The bread went from being a living, slowly transformed food to being dough that puffed up quickly and got shoved in an oven before anything meaningful could happen to it. Fast bread, cheap bread, profitable bread, dead bread. Stage 4. They added things that have no business being in bread, and this is where it goes from sad to genuinely disturbing. Because it wasn't enough to change the wheat, gut the flour, and kill the fermentation. They started putting things in bread that would have made any ancient baker, any baker from any century before the 20th, stare in absolute confusion. Chlorine gas, pumped into flour to make it whiter. Chlorine gas, the same chemical used as a weapon in World War I, in your flour, so it looks prettier on the shelf. Potassium bromate, added to make dough stronger and bread fluffier. Linked to cancer, classified as a possible human carcinogen. Azotocarbonamide, a dough conditioner, also used to make yoga mats and shoe soles. Preservatives, so bread can sit on a shelf for weeks. Ancient bread lasted 2, maybe 3 days. It was baked fresh, eaten fresh. When it went stale, they soaked it in water or wine and ate it anyway. Nobody needed chemicals to keep bread alive for a month, because bread was never supposed to last a month. And I swear I'm not making this up. High fructose corn syrup. In bread, many commercial brands add sweeteners, sugar in bread. The staff of life, the food Jesus chose to represent his own body, sweetened with corn syrup so it tastes a little better and you buy it again next week. Here's what I want you to do. After this video, go to your kitchen, pick up that loaf of bread, turn it around, read the ingredients, count them. If there are more than 5, you're not holding bread. You're holding a product that was engineered to look like bread, taste close enough to bread, cost almost nothing to make, last almost forever on a shelf, and generate maximum profit. That's not bread. That's a business model shaped like a loaf. Jesus, at the Last Supper, took bread. Luke 22:19. He gave thanks. He broke it, and he said, "This is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." Of everything in the world, every food, Every symbol, every object he could have chosen, he chose bread. Why? Because bread was pure. Bread was honest. Bread was the one thing every single person in that room understood. Rich or poor, young or old, fisherman or tax collector, everyone knew bread. Everyone had watched their mother make it. Everyone had smelled it baking. Everyone had torn a piece off a warm loaf and eaten it with their hands. Bread was life. And Jesus said, "This is me." 4 ingredients: grain, water, salt, thyme, nothing hidden, nothing fake, nothing added. In conclusion, biblical bread, ancient grain that had grown unchanged for thousands of years, ground whole between 2 stones, fermented slowly, patiently, for half a day or more, baked fresh in a clay oven, eaten that day or the next. Your body got every nutrient. Your stomach handled it easily. Your energy lasted for hours. 4 ingredients: modern bread, new wheat, your body has never seen before, stripped of everything good, pumped with synthetic vitamins, risen in an hour, loaded with bleach, chemicals, preservatives, and corn syrup. Your blood sugar spikes, your gut fights it, your energy crashes. 20 to 30 ingredients, half of them from a laboratory. Same word, completely different thing. And we wonder why celiac disease has quadrupled in 50 years. We wonder why millions of people feel terrible after eating bread. We wonder why gut problems and diabetes and inflammation keep climbing and climbing and climbing. Maybe bread isn't the enemy. Maybe what we did to bread is the enemy. You know, there's a verse, Ezekiel 4:9, where God gives the prophet Ezekiel a specific recipe for bread. He says, "Take wheat and barley, beans and lentils, millet and spelt, put them in a storage jar, and use them to make bread for yourself." 6 ingredients, all whole, all from the earth, grains and legumes mixed together. And here's the beautiful part, that combination creates a complete protein. Every essential amino acid your body needs, in a single loaf of bread. No meat required, no supplements, just 6 things from the ground, combined the way God said to combine them. He didn't hand Ezekiel a recipe with 37 ingredients and a warning label. He gave him 6 things you could hold in your hands, and that bread was enough to live on. Ezekiel ate it for over a year. It was designed to be complete, everything a body needs in one loaf. We had the answer the whole time. We just stopped listening.
No warning label, no enrichment,
Jesus fed 5,000 people with 5 loaves and 2 fish. He didn't pick something fancy. He picked the most basic, most humble, most universal food on earth. Because bread was enough. Bread was everything. And then, in the span of one lifetime, we took it apart. Piece by piece, stage by stage, we changed the grain, we gutted the flour, we killed the fermentation, we filled it with chemicals, and then we looked around, confused, wondering why everyone was suddenly sick. We didn't break bread, we broke what bread was. But, and this is the part I want you to hold on to, the old way still works, right now, today. The ancient grains still grow, sourdough starters are still alive, some of them passed down hand to hand for hundreds of years. Stone mills still turn. The knowledge is still there. The recipe was never lost. It was just buried under 70 years of shortcuts and profit margins. The bread that fed the prophets is still possible. The bread that Jesus held in his hands at that table, simple, whole, warm from the fire, broken and shared, you can make that bread in your own kitchen, with your own hands. 4 ingredients, 12 hours of patience, and a tradition older than any empire that ever stood on this earth. That's real bread. If this changed how you see something as simple as a loaf of bread, imagine what else we've been getting wrong. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to keep walking this road with us, uncovering what the Bible actually says about how we were meant to live, eat, and take care of these bodies, subscribe to Biblical Footsteps. Hit that bell. We're just getting started, and there's so much more to uncover.